Welcome to the Legacy and Light podcast, where we are creating a culture of community by sharing stories of what God has done. I'm Allie Maddox, your host for today's episode, and today we have a really special guest that I'm super excited about, Misti Winters. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yes, I've been looking forward to it. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about you and where would people most likely find you around the church throughout the week or on Sundays?
Okay. Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 and 8:30 to noon on Fridays. You can find me in the business office. I'm responsible for the money that goes out as far as AP, all the things that the church does and pays for and all the things like that. And then I'm also responsible for payroll. So
Lovely.
anybody who works here wants to be my friend.
I bet so.
And then on Sundays, you'll most likely find me in the choir or on the praise team for the worship service in the big church.
Big church. We call it big church too. Which, beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you.
Just
Likewise.
absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
But yeah, I run into people all the time. They're like, "Oh, you work here," or "Aren't you the one that sings in church?" I'm like, "Yes, that would be me."
That is me. Yes. So let's go to the very beginning of your childhood. Were you raised in a Christian home or not raised in a Christian home? And tell us of your journey to finding Jesus for yourself.
I was blessed to say that I was raised in a Christian home. Both of my parents are strong believers and very thankful for that. I have an older brother who we were both raised in church. I guess, let's see, I came to know Christ at the age of 7. And it was our pastor at the church that we went to, very sweet man, Pastor Goodrum, that was his name. He had white hair. He was just so easy to talk to. And he, I guess I had asked, it's hard to remember, at that age, but I guess that I had asked my parents a bunch of questions, or I don't know. I mean, being in church, and I was in Sunday school. I was in GAs, like I was an active part of like children's choir, like we were there all the time, And so I guess I had asked them questions and they asked him to come over to the house and we had a conversation. And at that age, I can remember just him telling me who Jesus was and who Jesus was to me and why did I want to get baptized and what did that mean to me? And I knew enough to know that Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and I wanted to spend eternity in heaven with him because I really didn't want to go to the other place. At age 7, that was a big deal. I was baptized and then raised in that church. It was in Levelland at Second Baptist Church. And so, yeah. And so it was a blessing. I had Sunday school teachers who just poured into me, GA leaders who just poured into me, and then as I grew up, being in the youth group and part of the youth choir, it was some of the best times of my life. And in a small town, I went to school with a lot of the same people I went to church with. And so that helped too, to have that base of strong Christian friends, to walk through school with. Yeah, it was great. I had a great upbringing in the church and great experiences within the church. And so, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then you, I assume you graduated from?
I graduated from Levelland. And then I went 2 years of junior college at South Plains College there in Levelland. I wanted to be a country music singer.
Were you in the program?
I was.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And so out of high school, I went to the country and bluegrass program that South Plains College had. I guess they still have it. Yeah. I loved it, but I was not, the music theory just kind of, went over my head. I really just wanted to sing. I didn't really want to, now I regret it. I tried guitar, I tried piano, I didn't have the mental fortitude to do those things. And music theory just kind of, I loved to sing and that's what I wanted to do, but everything else that was involved in it was just kind of overwhelming to me. And so then I switched to elementary education.
Okay.
Quickly realized that was not for me either. And so I got a full-time job working for a dermatologist here in town in Lubbock. And so at the time I thought, well, it's good. I have a great job. I can grow from there, and I don't really know what I want to do as far as school goes. And so let me just take this job and see where that leads. And if I want to go back to school someday, that's always an option. And so that's what I did. And I was in medical, like reception, billing, all that kind of stuff from pretty much 2 years after I graduated up until probably, I don't guess, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago when I started working here.
Yeah. Okay, so you got a lot of your skills working there.
Mm-hmm. I did dermatology, rheumatology, family practice, chiropractic. Like, I've done several different medical, in the medical field. Like, it was all reception, scheduling, insurance, things like that. So I liked it. I really did. It was busy. The last place I worked was incredibly busy, and I did a lot of the referrals because it was family practice. So referring out to specialists and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was crazy.
I bet.
Yeah.
Were you still going to Second Baptist?
When I was in college, yes. But then actually we moved, my parents and I moved over here, I think in 98, maybe. And we went to Southcrest for a little bit.
Okay.
But then my dad was a bivocational music minister. And so he was at the time in the oil field, but he also would go to local, I say local, like surrounding, like we were in Levelland for a little while. We were over here for a little while. He would fill in, like if a church didn't have a music minister, he would fill in on Sundays. And so, yeah, it was a really neat way to like meet a lot of different people and experience a lot of different churches. And they were mainly small, but out of that, my dad obviously also sings, and my older brother sings. And so the three of us would go to revivals, like in little towns like Abilene, like, Levelland, around Lubbock. And we would be the music for the revival. And we usually knew the pastor, he was going to be leading the revival also.
That's
and
so cool.
Yeah, that opened up a lot of ways to meet other people, and get asked to sing at other various different things. And so that was pretty fun. That was a great time.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been singing forever.
Yes, forever. I would probably say since the age of probably 7. Yeah, they had a children's choir there at the church, and we did programs, and then that graduated into the youth choir. And through that, we did a lot of, like, in the summer, we would travel. We would go to other churches and like sing for them and stay at host homes and kind of like Disciple Now, but it was with a church choir. And so it was really cool. Yeah, it was a really neat experience.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved to get a job in Lubbock, and you were there for a couple of, I guess, how long did you say?
4.
4.
We moved in 98.
Okay.
And then, let's see, I got married, my first marriage. We got married in 2000. Let's see, I probably started working in the medical field before. It was probably 96, 97, because I worked there a little bit longer. But in 2000, I was married, and we moved pretty soon after that to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes. It was funny because the marriage counselor at the time that we did before we got married was like, the best thing you and your spouse could do is move 500 miles away from your family, because then it's just the two of you and you have to figure out things, and there's not that, you can't always run back to this or that. And so we were like, well, and sure enough, we moved exactly 500 miles away from our family when we moved to Houston.
Wow. What took y'all to Houston?
First husband was in the ministry at the time. And he had a job opportunity at a church there to be their youth pastor. And so we moved there so he could do that. And at the same time, he was going to go to school for ministry. The church there at the time, pretty soon after we came on there, the lead pastor who had started the church decided he got the opportunity to go be a dean for a Christian college. And so he took that opportunity, and they asked, Brian is his name. I guess I should give him a name. But anyway, they asked Brian to kind of hold off on going to school because they were probably going to need him to supply the pulpit. between him and the worship minister. They were going to kind of tag team on that while they looked for another pastor. And so he put schooling off, and then about a year into it was like, okay, they haven't even really started looking for somebody, and I'm not willing to put my entire life on hold for, for a youth pastor job at this church, even though we loved it and it was fun. But he really wanted to be in school to progress in his ministry. And so he applied for Moody Bible Institute in Chicago and got in. Him and one of his very best friends, who also was in Houston at the time, they both got in. And so it was kind of one of those things. We talked about it, like, can we do this? And it was one of those, well, we have to try it because we're always going to wonder if we should have, if we don't, And so we moved from Houston to Chicago, outside of Chicago. And actually, no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. It was Philadelphia Biblical Institute that he got into. He did end up going to Moody, but that was in a little bit. So we moved from Houston to Langhorne, Pennsylvania. And yeah, it was crazy. On the way there, I had a phone interview. And by the time we moved there, I had a job working for the rheumatology practice that I worked for. And Brian was going to school and working part-time, I think. And while we were there, we were only there for a year. It was a year-long intensive Jewish studies program that he did. And then after that, he had planned to stay there and continue his education at Philadelphia Biblical Institute. I think it has a different name now. I'm not sure. But anyway, at the end of that is when he and his good friend that he met there applied for Moody and got into Moody. And so then we moved from Pennsylvania to Chicago. But before we did that, I was pregnant. I got pregnant with our oldest son, Isaiah. And so when we moved from Philadelphia to Chicago, I was 8 months pregnant with Isaiah. And so
super fun.
Yes, when we get there, it's like nobody's going to hire me, 8 months pregnant, who's about to need to go on maternity leave. Brian was going to school. We did not live in downtown Chicago where Moody was. We lived in an outlying town, and he took the train. So he was school all day and then worked at FedEx during the night. And so I was pretty much by myself all the time, about to have my first baby and pretty much going crazy, And so that didn't last very long. I mean, Isaiah, we moved up there in, I guess, August. Maybe into July. And Isaiah was born October 1st. And so he was 10 days old when we decided this is not working. We can't do this. Like, financially, we can't make this. Like, school is great, but for our family, this is not where we need to be right now and what we need to be doing. And so that's when we moved back to Lubbock.
Okay.
When he was 10 days old. And Brian actually came on, I don't think he immediately came on staff here, but he was on staff here for a little while as like the family ministry pastor. And then while he was here doing that, we got pregnant with our second son, Samuel, and he was born here. And then when he was 18 months old, we moved back to Houston because that same church that he was a youth pastor at, they asked him to come back and be their lead pastor.
So they never found?
They did. They went through a couple in that period of time. We were here in Lubbock, though, for like 5 years.
Okay.
It wasn't like a boom, boom, boom,
Okay.
But we were here for like 5 years. And we had kept in contact with those people,
Yeah.
And so they asked him to come be their pastor. So we were like, okay, well, we'll come back. And it was a lead pastor job, which is what he had always wanted. And with a smaller church, you run into, there are people in the congregation who don't really want to grow the church because they like it the way it is. But as the pastor, like, that's what you want. You want to grow it. You want more people coming in to hear the gospel and be changed by it, And so there was that kind of friction a little bit. And so we were there for several years. And while we were there, got pregnant with Lexi. And when she was 18 months old, came back to Lubbock.
Goodness.
Yeah. At that time, Brian decided he was kind of burnt out, with ministry. And he decided to work with his dad in the furniture business and kind kind of step away from ministry a little while, just like be able to be involved in the church and like just kind of be fed, And
How
so
did you feel about that transition?
honestly, at that point in time, I was ready to be done with ministry. It was just, it just seemed like we met a brick wall at every turn, and looking back, I realized like a lot of that, uh, a lot of that was us, like, trying to go ahead of God, like trying to be like, oh, we know this is what he would want, or this is, this,
Yeah.
it's of him, so it has to be
Right.
good.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, and so in hindsight, there's a lot of, oh, well, we could have handled that differently, or that you just kind of like, we see there is blame to put on us as well as that. But it became overwhelming, like just constantly trying to get traction on something that just didn't ever seem to like to happen. And so I was thankful for the lessons learned along the way, but also at that point in life, like, yes, can I just please pick the church I want to go to, be as involved as I want to be or not, and just have somebody pour into me and us,
Yeah.
And so that's, we ended up back here, but that's also the start of a very tumultuous time, like, for us. I think his identity was somewhat lost in having left ministry. And for me, as a spouse, like trying to help somebody in that, like I tried as best as I could, but there was a lot that I felt like he took on himself, and a lot of just like he failed, at what he thought he always wanted to do. And so that was very difficult in that. And I think, some kids grow up wanting to do what their parents do, and other kids like, I want to do anything but what my parent did.
Thing opposite.
And so I think going into that line of work almost felt like this is what I have to do, but it's not really what I want to do. But I have to support my family. And so in that, initially it was very good, but then I don't know, I just think his identity was in something else, and then trying to put it into something that he didn't really see himself doing, it was just very hard for him. And he's still doing that to this day. So it's obviously something he learned to be good at and do. But for our marriage and our family, it was kind of like the breaking point.
Yeah. Were y'all attending Southcrest, or when y'all moved back to Lubbock, did y'all get involved somewhere?
We did start out at Southcrest, but when Brian was on staff here, before we moved away, he and Dusty Thompson, who was the university pastor here, were really close.
Okay.
Really good friends. They worked together and became really good friends. And so Brian really wanted to start attending over at Redeemer. And so we went there for a couple years and got really plugged in, and were part of a home group that we really enjoyed. It was actually Dusty and Amy's home group. And so that was really special. And Brian had started working still in the furniture business, but on the international side. And so he was traveling to China. Like, he would go 2 weeks at a time and then be back home for like a period of time and then go again. So there was a lot. He was gone a lot, but
and you're home with the 3 kids.
Yeah. And so during that time, he met someone else and ended up having an affair, and that ended up being initial thought whenever that came to light and I was told about that was, God, show me how to show him the grace that you show me every day, like in this. Like, I don't want my marriage to end. I don't want my family like dissolved. I want to be able to work this out. And so that was my main focus. And Brian, having been up to this time, he's going through all these emotions about like how to tell me that this is happening. And so by the time he tells me, he's already resolved all that, And so to him, I was going to say, get out. Like, that was what was going to happen. So when that didn't happen, that sent him into a tailspin, like I don't know how to reconcile where I'm at and what you want at the same time, and how to fix that. And so I was pleading for, like marriage counseling and all this stuff. And we ended up doing like a therapeutic separation kind of thing, for a while. And he was just at the point where he just didn't see a way around it. Like he didn't see how the two of us could stay together. And so we ended up divorcing at his recommendation. And by the time it came to be, I was like, yeah, this is what needs to happen, And so we were divorced for almost a year when he came back. And I mean, we had communication during this time. Obviously, we have 3 kids together, so it's going to happen. But he had been up and toward the end of that year of being divorced, he had been reaching out saying, I've been doing a lot of praying. I've been doing a lot of listening to podcasts and a lot of speaking with, the pastor and everything. And I really am, what would it take for us to be able to get back together, And of course, I had some questions around that, like, why now? Like, what's changed? This kind of stuff. But at the same time, wanting reconciliation for my kids and for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up getting remarried. And at that, he was still doing the international travel at that time. And so we decided, I mean, it was really hard on him to do that because he would go from Lubbock to Dallas to Denver to California to China. And so we talked about it and thought, we really could live anywhere. Like, I mean, what he was making at the time, I didn't have to work, like, because I just didn't have to. And so we decided, hey, what if we moved to California? Like, it would cut out all those stops.
Yeah.
You just, And so we went out there for spring break. One spring break, took the kids out there and just to see what it was like. And if actually through Dusty, found another pastor out there who had a church. And so we connected with them. And then so the kids loved it. We loved it. We came back from that spring break and said, okay, when school's out, we're going to move to California. And so we did. We lived there for 2 years, even though obviously I'm not married to Brian anymore. So, but anyway, even though that and I'll get to there in a minute, but those were the best 2 years probably of my life. Like, even though my marriage ended up not working out, like, God took me there to, I believe, to show my kids, first and foremost, that, hey, like, there's other things out there. Like, we're going to move you to this new place where you know no one. You have to go into a school system that's not anything like where you've been before. And they handled it like champs. They really just got involved and just did really well. I was able to be very involved in my daughter's. The boys were in middle school, and so when you get in middle school, they kind of don't want mom and dad around anymore, and so, but Lexi was in elementary. She was in 2nd grade when she did 2nd and 3rd grade there, and the school was very welcoming to parents. I walked her to her class every morning. I stayed and helped the teacher, like, read to kids or help with math, or me and another mom became the room moms, and we decorated the outside of her door every month with a different theme. Like,
Precious.
it was just great. Like, I wouldn't trade those times with my daughter for anything in the world. Fast forward 2 years, with all the tariffs and everything like that, the job ended up being he wasn't able to go as often, or like the business just slowed down incredibly with everything going on in the economy. And so we ended up having to move back to Lubbock again. And at that time, the kids were excited. They're like, we're going to go back and see our friends. And yeah, they weren't like, oh,
Yeah.
But then quickly when we got back here, they started missing California and the experiences there and everything that it had to offer. And so that was hard. And Brian ended up asking for a second divorce after we moved back there. And so at that point, I was just kind of like, okay, if this is what you want, then I'm going to give it to you. Like I didn't have it in me to fight anymore. Like I knew it was kind of a moot point, like for me at that time. And so we ended up divorcing again I think that was in 2021. Yeah, because it was after COVID. And so I think that was in 2021. And that was a really dark time for me just because I felt like I failed twice, as a wife. And like the kids were older, and so they understood more, about the whole divorce and what it does. And it's still to this day. Isaiah's now 21, Samuel's 19, Lexi's 15. Like, it still to this day has ramifications, I guess, in their lives. I can see, and as a mom, that's hard for me because I can't fix it. I can't, I can be there and I can listen and I can support, but I can't fix it, and that's something that I never wanted for my kids. And I don't think anybody would, and if Brian were sitting here today, he would say, I never wanted to get divorced. That wasn't like a thought in my mind. Like, I would think he would say that. And we would both say we would not ever want that for anyone's children. But, we do the best we can and try to support them and get them the help that they need as well. People say it all the time, kids are resilient, but they still harbor, pain from their past. And as they get older, they can ask more questions, and those questions get harder. You want to tell them the truth, but at the same time, shield them a little bit from the ugliness of it. That's kind of like the past, and then I really went through a period where I never wondered if God was mad at me or, trying to, I knew God allowed this to happen, but I never said God caused this to happen. Okay. Like, I knew that this was allowed by God, and that ironically at the time, like Lisa Turkhurst was kind of going through the same thing, and so I really felt like her podcasts and her books and her speaking engagements, I just really, anything that she was doing, like, I wanted to be involved in, because if anybody knew where I was coming from, she knew where I was coming from and could speak to it. And so I found a lot of comfort in her daily devotions and her books. And I really dove into, women's ministry stuff. Brenda Richardson did a Bible study, and it was Laura Story and what is the When God Doesn't Fix It or something like that.
Yeah.
And that book, it really spoke to me, because it really just reiterated that even if he doesn't fix it, he's still good. Mm-hmm. And he still has good for me and for my kids. And I really just tried to settle into that and just keep reminding myself of that. Like, no matter what has happened, like, God can use it and he can make it better.
Yeah.
There can be good on the backside of something really terrible. And so I just really tried to just remind myself of that. Like, yeah, that was bad. And yeah, I never saw myself here. And this was not the plan for my future. But I'm not in control. And God is. And Lisa Turkhurst had a saying about, like, he's really good at being God. And so I was like, how about I let him, And so, that was it was a lot of growth in those, I guess, 2 years that I was completely on my own, but it really helped me to know that I could do it. I mean, I I could do it on my own. I could be mom. I could work. I could make a home for my children. I could make a life for my children. Like, I could do it, you know? And I had very supportive family, very supportive friends. This church is, I mean, I could not have done it without the people of this church. They stood beside me, they stood behind me, and they supported me from the very beginning. And I would not be where I am today without the people here. It's a testament to the church body and being the hands and feet of Jesus. It really is. And I'm so thankful to be a part of a church that is that way. I want to be that now for other people. Like, I want to be somebody that people feel like if they're going through something like that, like I can remind them, like, stay connected. I think you need to go through all the feelings. You need, and don't apologize for feeling the way that you're feeling. But my dad, one time, he said, "Sweetie, like, you can do this. You're going to have to tell yourself and make yourself believe that you can do it." He was right. Yeah, I just poured into the church body and let them pour into me.
When did you come here again? Whenever y'all moved back?
When we moved back, I'm trying to remember. I think we were at Redeemer for a time because that's where we were when we left. And so we came back and went there because we were obviously still together. But then whenever we divorced, it was too painful for me to be over there, like to stay there, even though I love those people and they walked through that second divorce with me and were very, very kind, very gentle, very helpful, very supportive. But my parents were here and the people that I loved were here. And so I felt like for me and my kids, like we needed to be somewhere where we were going to be loved on and supported. And not that you couldn't have that at Redeemer. I just felt more of a tie here to the people here. And so that's when the kids and I came back to Southcrest and started getting involved more here, with the choir and orchestra and stuff, and which I had been before. So it was kind of like a welcome back, kind of thing. And so let's see, at the time I was working for the family practice doctor, was happy over there. But as it would happen, Allison Webb, who's David's secretary, she reached out to me asking if I knew of anybody who would be looking for a job because they had an opening in the business office here. And so I just asked her, I said, "Okay, well, what does that look like? So if I know somebody's interested, I can tell them." She kind of told me, "Well, I don't know a ton about it, but I can give you, Rusty McDonald. I can give you her name and email, and maybe she can give you some more information." And so I reached out to Rusty and she told me, and I was like, "Well, I think I can do that," and we were getting more and more busy at the family practice place. And it was one of those things where you felt like if I miss a day, like it's going to be so hard to come back from that. It was just very stressful. And while I liked it, at the same time, I was like, this is kind of consuming me. And so I wasn't really looking for a way out. But so I reached out to Rusty and got some more information, and then I told her, I actually said, "Well, I actually might be interested, in this position." And she was like, "Oh, I would love to meet with you." And so we met, and I told her, I said, "I don't really know anything about accounting or anything like that." I said, "But I love to balance my checkbook, like to the penny. If it's a penny off, I'm going to find it." And she goes like, "We can use you," And so we had a great lunch, and I think she came back and talked to Jack. And of course, I've known Jack forever, and so he reached out and talked to me a little bit more about the position. And I was like, "Yeah, I think I want to do it." And so came over here and started working with Rusty. And that's grown over the last 4 or 5 years to, something I really enjoy doing and feel like I do well, and love the people that I work with, love the community here. It's so great to be on staff at the church that I love. I enjoy it.
Was it hard leaving? Because I know you said you had a really good community here as well, but like your small group at Redeemer and just like that close-knit community of friends.
Yeah.
And then moving, I know you probably found that here by now, but that transition during that dark time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was difficult because I had met with several of the ladies, that were in that small group, but they were so supportive and loving, and you have to do what's right for you and what's right for your kids, and if that's what you feel you need to do, like, we're all here in the same town. Like,
Yeah.
we can still meet for lunch.
Yeah.
We can still meet for coffee. We can still talk over social media. Like, it's not like you're leaving us, It's like you're just doing what you feel is best for your family and where you're at right now. So I didn't feel any pull to, like, try to stay there for the wrong reason, And so they, very incredibly supportive, and I still talk to a few of them,
Yeah. Are y'all a part of a small group now?
Not regularly, but we attend Bruce and Kelly Feller's class.
Lovely people.
Yeah, yeah. It's great. It's a big class, but they do a great job. They do a great job with the class, and even though it is big, keeping it like a community, kind of feel. And we're not as involved as I really would like to be. Jeremy, being in security here, if somebody can't make it, then he fills in. So a lot of Sundays he's working.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I go in there by myself, and go to the class. But it's hard to if I'm on praise team or the choir, like you're getting in there late, and so it's
yes.
It's kind of, you of all people know exactly what I'm talking about. But we try, we try to be as involved as we can, but we could do better. Lexi's getting to where she's wanting to be involved in the youth stuff. And
did she come last?
She did come last night. Yeah.
Did she tell you? Were you there?
No,
Did
I was
she tell
not.
you how many students showed up last night?
No.
170.
That is so awesome.
And I leaned over to Kendall. I was like, y'all gonna fit all these people upstairs?
Yeah.
Where are all these people gonna go?
I know.
What?
Lexi told me that she signed up to be part of the praise
Yay!
team, and I was so excited.
Oh,
I was
that's
so excited for her.
Yeah. I love that it's growing, and
to see your daughter do something that you also enjoy is pretty special. Yeah. Yeah.
I bet that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, would you mind talking through how you met Jeremy?
Absolutely. That's a fun story. Let's see. We back to Bruce and Kelly's class. Like, I had not been really attending Sunday school because I didn't really know where I fit, like as a single mom, and they had a singles ministry here, but I don't know, in my mind, singles ministry is like singles trying to meet other singles who share the same belief, which is not a bad thing, but I wasn't like early on, I wasn't at that point. Like I wasn't looking for that, and I didn't really want to go by myself, and so I would just sing and then leave, My kids weren't really highly involved in church at that point. And I wasn't pushing, I wasn't trying to push. I was just trying to support. And so it was just easy to just show up and then leave. And so, but I am good friends with Allison, knew Kelly and Bruce very well. And so they had tried to get me, to come to the class. And a few times I had told them, I'll think about it, but it's like a couples class. Like, I'm not a couple, you know? And so it was really a mental thing at that point, because I knew I could go in there and it would be fine. But I just, for myself, I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And so they both, one week, were like, we really want you to come this week. We really want you to come to class. And I was like, this is weird. Like, why are y'all both like so adamant that I be there this Sunday, And so I was like, all right, like, okay. And then in the back of my mind, I thought, I bet there's somebody in the class that they want me to get to know, And so I showed up and I sat by Allison. At the time, the class was like, it was kind of like in a U shape.
Okay.
And so I was sitting over here on the front row with Allison and Terry, and then Jeremy, who I didn't know his name at the time, was sitting back here in the corner by himself. And so in the class at the beginning, they go around and ask for prayer requests. They go to each person, and then you can say, I'm good, or you can share a prayer request. And so it went back, around the back row. And so it got to Jeremy, and he was like, yeah, I just want to ask y'all for prayer because I really want to start dating, and I really want to ask a girl out, but I'm terrified. I'm terrified of women. And so I was like, I kind of chuckled, And then I was in my mind, I'm thinking, that's a bold ask. Like, way to go. Go you, you know? And then in my mind, though, when he said that, I thought, oh, well, that's not who they wanted me to meet because he has somebody that he wants to ask out.
Somebody.
The way he said it made it sound like he wanted to ask a certain person out, you know? And so 2 or 3 weeks later, Kelly actually started working in the business office, counting the money on Mondays and Thursdays for the tithes that come in. And so it was one afternoon she was doing that, and I just said, hey, remember that guy in Sunday school class that asked for prayer, you know, to ask a girl out? And she was like, she just looked at me, and I was like, do you remember him? She was like, yes. And then I said, well, did he ask her out? Like, how did it go? Like, I want to know. And she was like, she just stared at me for the longest time. And I was like, Kelly, like, am I asking the wrong question? Like, what's going on? You know? And she finally said, Bruce and I both said we were not going to say anything to either one of you about the other one unless one of you asked first. And she said, since you asked, I will tell you, he did ask this lady on a date. She was a coworker, and they went on a date. And he realized at the end of that date that they were better off as friends, and that wasn't something that he was interested in pursuing. And so that's where it is. And I was like, well, good for him. Good that it, you know. And she was like, would you care if I gave him your number? And I was like, at first I was like, no. You know, like, and then I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to talking to him. You know, he seemed like a nice guy. And so she gave him my number, and he was like, I can't text her. I can't call her. Like, and Kelly's like, why? And he's like, she didn't give me her number. You gave it to me. And Kelly was like, I'm telling you, it's okay. And then through working security, there were several other of some of the older ladies that were like, have you met Misty? And have you, you know, talking to him like this? And so finally they told him, like, just text her. Like, at this point, they were like, just send her a text. And so he did, and we texted back and forth, and he will tell you that I turned him down multiple times, which I'm sure that's the way it looked to him, but I was just scared. Like, I didn't know if I had the mental fortitude to date someone. And what if it didn't work out? And then I've wasted all this time. I'm older, like, I have children. Like, do I have, yeah, do I really want to go through all this, you know? And so we messaged back and forth. We kind of had a time where we didn't really talk. And then the way we ended up together is kind of cool because he had been asking, like, his family for prayer to ask a lady out to date, you know? And so then through the course of our communication and stuff, he ended up telling them, like, I want to change. I want y'all to stop praying for me to date somebody. I want y'all to start praying for me to find my wife. And so it was like 2 days after that he came up to the church building to do security for one Wednesday night, I think it was, or maybe it was Tuesday. And I heard him, but he didn't come into the office to say hi to me, which wasn't really a big deal. I mean, we were kind of, we were talking, but it wasn't like we were BFFs or, you know, like I wasn't, but I just remember thinking, well, I wonder, he was right there. Like, I'm right here. Like, why didn't he just stick around and say, hey, you know? And so I came out of the office and I asked, I think it was Ashley that was sitting there at the time, like, where did Jeremy go? And she was like, well, I saw him go that way. And so I went in the venue and he was standing there and he looked like he had been, like, teary-eyed. And I said, are you okay? And he said, not really. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, you know? And leading up to this point, there had been a lot going on in me, like, he's a good guy. Like, you should really give him an opportunity. Like, he's been very patient with you. He's been very kind. He's been very supportive, you know, of you, like, floundering, you know? And so before, like I had been hoping that he, even though I didn't know he was coming, like, when I heard his voice, I realized that, hey, I really want to talk to him. Like, I want to tell him kind of what I'm feeling, and not like, I don't know if I'm all in yet, but I just want to tell him that I'm at the point where I would like to get to know him better, like, on a deeper level. Yeah. And so when I found him in the venue and asked him that, and he said, no, I'm not okay. And I was like, you really should ask me out again. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, you should. And he was like, do you want to go out? And I was like, I would love that. And he said, how about this Friday? And I was like, that would be perfect. And he was like, okay, I'll come pick you up. And so he did. And we went on several dates and had many meaningful conversations and deep conversations. And he was honest and he was forthcoming and he was not shy about questions he was asking me. I was not shy about questions I would ask him. We both had come from divorce. And so we both had been hurt and we both knew what we didn't want. And we both knew what we were looking for at this point in our life. Mm-hmm. And all of that lined up. And so he asked me to marry him. I said yes. And it'll be 2 years in November that we've been married.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. He's a great guy. And I know that, I tell him all the time and he reiterates, that we wouldn't wish what we came from on our worst enemy, but where it has led both of us, we are so thankful to have found each other and to be living the life that we are now with each other and our kids. He has 2 kids. They're older than mine, a few years older than mine. So we joke about like we met at the right time because if we had met previously, we would all have been under one roof with 2 of us and 5 children, and that would have been just insane. And so God's perfect timing is perfect timing. And so
I love that.
We're thankful, very thankful to have what we have and to be where we are. And it has not been without its challenges too, like blending families is not for the faint of heart, and we've had some issues with that and are still dealing with some of those issues, like just figuring out how to navigate that, being a stepmom to adult children and him being a stepdad to still school age kids, even though when we married Samuel, my middle son was a senior, mm-hmm. and Lexi, I guess, what was she, 8th grade at the time? I don't remember. But anyway, and so just walking through those seasons, with them, like trying to be a step parent, but them having some pushback, just figuring it all out has been kind of trying, I guess, and just how to navigate that. And mm-hmm. we were not beyond asking for help and, getting resources and all the things like that. 'Cause we want to do it right. We want to do it good. We want to have a good family unit. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, we do. I would say that we do. We just figuring out the logistics of how to manage a blended family has been something that who would think about it until you're thrown into that, And so, but I'm thankful that there are the resources there to help with that.
Going through all the things, you very much kept in community and mm-hmm. kept in, I don't know if mentorship, if you would put mm-hmm. that word on it, mm-hmm. but just like surrounding yourself with people that love you and will lead you to the Lord through all the hard things. I think that is so spiritually mature mm-hmm. in that and so great. And that's definitely kind of like what the basis of this podcast basically is just like the importance of community. And not just because you don't know what's going to happen, but like you don't know what's going to happen,
I'm even a bigger proponent of the fact that God allows us to go through things in our life so that we can then turn around and help somebody else who finds themselves in that same situation. And I had that, and I want to be that, for somebody else who, it doesn't even have to be exactly what I went through, but loss, any kind of loss, like a loss is a loss and people are going to handle it in different ways. And if I can just be somebody to help encourage them to stay in community and to stay in the word and to stay in God's presence, mm-hmm. like not to try to run from it, but to actively pursue it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's makes all the difference. I don't know how people who don't have a relationship with God handle life, period.
I do not
life.
Either.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is a piece of advice or your biggest piece of advice for the next generation of women that, could be walking through something similar? What would you tell them?
I probably the thing is just to remind them that you're not alone. Like, it feels very lonely. Like, when you're in a dark period and life takes a turn that you never saw coming. Like, it can feel very lonely. But that's why God gave us community. And that's why it's so important to find people of like mind and of like spirituality to help you through those things. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be just not to shy away. You're going to feel like you failed, or like you're scarred, or there's something wrong with you, but the people who really love you and support you, like, that's not what they think at all. Like, don't put that on them. Like, they want to help you. They want to be there, and they want to help you, and they want to walk beside you through this. So let them.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
The podcast and taking your Friday afternoon to come over here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I've been looking forward to it, and it was a blessing for me for sure.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see y'all next time.